Welcome back to the Self-Trust Solution Podcast. I'm Dawn Ledet, your host and the self-trust coach. In today's episode, I'm joined by Alexis Quintal, an entrepreneur and branding expert whose story is a powerful reminder of what it looks like to trust yourself through uncertainty, especially when you're leaving a familiar corporate path and building something of your own. This conversation is about choosing alignment over approval, learning to lead yourself through slower seasons, and building confidence not through hype or perfection, but through consistency, clarity, and owning your own voice. Alexis shares what it took to make that transition, how self trust shaped the way she builds teams and works with clients, and why trusting yourself often matters most when things feel unclear. Let's get into it. Welcome, Alexis, to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Well, Alexis, you're known for helping leaders grow their presence online and in their communities through authentic branding. But you've also had your own powerful journey of trusting yourself as an entrepreneur. Can you start by giving us a snapshot of what that looked like, what your life and business looked like before self trust?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on to be able to have this conversation. I think it's really important. And especially as an entrepreneur, you're taking a big risk. I worked in corporate and I got my master's in higher education. So I worked in the university setting. I worked in a traditional marketing agency and a traditional PR agency. So between those three roles, I was used to working for someone else, right? But also having that stable paycheck and not really having to wake up in the middle of the night, like stressed about certain things that come with being an entrepreneur. So you really do have to have that self-trust in order to go into business with yourself, right? You're basically like becoming your own partner in business, and it can be scary, but it also can be really empowering if you are able to get to a place where you trust that, you're going to do the right thing, you're in it for the right intentions, you're using all the right resources as well and not expecting yourself to know everything right off the bat. It definitely was a journey for me. And it's something that I really believe in, just taking that jump. If you overthink it and are like waiting for the right moment, it'll take you much longer to get to a place where you are trusting of yourself, but also just really taking that next phase. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, it's better to start now.
Yeah. I think what you bring up is really important because self trust doesn't mean a lack of uncertainty or a lack of doubt or fear. It just means that we are on our own side in figuring it out and moving through it. And that's the important piece because I share pretty publicly often that you can achieve a lot without self trust. I did it for decades.
Yeah,
Like, seriously, we can. It just does make everything more painful, takes longer, and it can also, to your point, we think that we need to know everything. And so I love how you bring up that self-trust doesn't mean not getting support and help. It means having that honest conversation with yourself and identifying, here's what I need. Let me tune in first is what I always say, and identify let me pull on my own wisdom, my own intuition, and let me formulate a plan moving forward. And then you can identify the gaps where you want to pull in support.
exactly. Yes. I think that's a great point, is that part of trusting yourself is being aware, right? And being aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and being able to also trust others. Maybe you're an expert in one thing, but they're an expert in something else, right? And having that trust in that partnership can really go a long way.
Yeah, because it's exhausting when you try and tell yourself. It's actually so unfair and exhausting to tell yourself that you're supposed to know everything and do everything. And that's what creates blocks and holding ourselves back by not just letting our strengths and our expertise be that and supporting ourselves with other people who already are experts. Like, why even not get the support? There's so much amazing support out there.
Yeah.
So you've shared that last year brought a slow season that kind of tested your confidence. What was going through your mind during that period and what helped you stay grounded in trust instead of panic?
Gosh, there was a lot going through my mind. So I've been in business for 5 years. And of course, there's been the ups and there's been the downs. I started my business during COVID. So obviously, that was a down. Then we came out of COVID 2022 and it felt okay, things were back to normal. And I started building this great client base and reaching new heights with my business. And then last year, 2024, just being I feel like a lot of people felt the same way. It was just a bit of an off year. The economy wasn't great. We were in an election year. Things were uncertain, and it caused quite a few of my clients to have to pull back on their finances. And marketing and PR is usually the first thing that they'll cut, even though I don't think it should be, of course. But I have to be understanding of people's financial situation. When you're an entrepreneur, I get it. There was a period where it felt like every phone call I got was bad news. And it was definitely something I started to take almost personally to heart of why is it that they're pulling back from working with me? What am I doing wrong? Am I like bad luck to my clients? Is there something that working with me is just not bringing in the business they need? And how can I improve that? There was definitely a phase of just discouragement, even thinking, do I need to go back to work? Was this just not for me? Because it was just so discouraging. But I still stayed consistent, and which is what I encourage my clients to do as well in their slow seasons. Don't stop posting. Don't stop going to events. Don't stop networking and building your community and building those relationships, because you never know. It may take a year or more, but you still have to keep that year long of consistency going. So I'm really glad that I was able to push through, because by basically fall of 2024 last year, things started to pick back up, right? All of the consistency, the visibility I'd grown for my own personal brand, and just kind of pushing through that slower season, it all started to pay off. And I started to bring on more team members as well, bringing on more support as well as more clients. And since then, it's now been a year of just consistent growth, which is great. But of course, I had to get through the discouraging, slower season and have trust in myself and really just keep looking towards the future, not get too bogged down by the fact that in that moment it wasn't going as great as I had hoped.
Sure. Yeah. And something that you say brings up a gift that we can give ourselves. I write about this in Master Your Inner Dialogue. Our brain often offers us so many questions like that. What did I do wrong? Was it me? Am I not serving my clients? And here's the truth, right? That what comes from that, the discouragement actually comes from those open ended questions. Because when we don't answer them intentionally, our brain offers us the quickest answer, which is often to say, oh, yeah, it probably is you. Or it is the economy. And look, neither of those could be completely true or completely false or true at all. But when we don't answer them, we leave these open loops for our brain to spin in. I always call it friends and evidence. They go and find friends and evidence to feed the doubt and the fear and the insecurity. And so, one thing that I invite listeners to do is answer those questions intentionally. Is it me? If you really believe it is, check in. Oh, I could have done these things better for data, not drama, not to judge yourself, not to open yourself up to criticism, but to learn from yourself because you're a brilliant, amazing human to learn from. And that gives us so much more power. It doesn't lead into feeding the discouragement. Is it the economy? You know what? That could be a part of it. What do I want to do to support my business, my clients, and myself through this down? Those are the kind of intentional strategic answers we can give to those questions. But the other piece that I love so much that you demonstrate is either way, consistency is having your own back. You are telling yourself that I believe in this business, I believe in myself, and I want to serve these clients. And if I keep showing up, this too will pass because there are cycles in business always. It's never a straight line up. We want it to be this straight line going up, and it's just not the way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I don't know if I heard if it was you that maybe posted this or something, but that's the second time I've heard the data, not drama.
Yeah.
And I'm liking that. I'm like, okay.
Yes,
So
we
true.
so much that we can learn from ourselves. And again, like we talked about, you are a great expert out there that can support people on branding and marketing. But we want to identify, we need to tune in first and see, what do I need? What do I want to build? What do I already know? We have so much wisdom inside us. But when we're so used to meeting that, our inner dialogue and ourselves internally with either avoidance or dismissal or judgment or criticism, we miss out on mining the amazing data that's there. Even losing a client is data. It doesn't have to be the horrible thing it is. In fact, it's not. It's a natural part of business. It happens for whatever reason they make that decision. But when we learn what that reason is, or we at least hypothesize for our business, then we can move forward strategically and intentionally.
Absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that the results of that consistency came later, right? Like dream clients, long-term growth, deeper credibility. Looking back, what do you think shifted internally that allowed the consistency to pay off?
Internally in myself or in myself. I think part of it too was actually letting go and trusting my team and really being able to even bring on more support, right? Because I was still trying to hold on to multiple different roles that I had been leading for the last few years. Really starting to put out there a job opening, just step one. So then step two, finding being selective of the right kind of fit for my company. And then step three is like actually giving them the empowering them to take over and take on some of the leadership and some of the responsibility, which meant I had to let it go. So that was definitely an internal process that I've gone through now in the last year or two and has, I think, definitely directly impacted the results of my company, but also just myself. I feel like I can do better work at what I do best because I'm not trying to wear so many hats and burn myself out or anything like that. Like now I just get to lean into the stuff I love. I love joining my biweekly Zoom calls with my clients and being able to just strategize with them, catch up on what's going on in the business, and then hop into my next Zoom meeting with my next client, do the same thing. And I really love just having those conversations with them and building that relationship. But then there's obviously all the work that goes on behind the scenes. So that's where I'm very blessed to have an amazing team that handles all of that so I can do what I do best.
What did that take for you to actually release those things? It sounds like it was a bit of a struggle. How did you make that switch from like holding on to it tightly to being able to let your team support you and do so that you can do what you do best?
Definitely came down to trust, right? I had to really find I'm very particular and I have an interesting kind of application interview process that's not very traditional. And that's how I really can we build the trust together through that process. And so that way when they actually start in the role on day one, they're already diving in and doing the work and I'm letting go of things so they can take on some responsibility and autonomy. So yeah, I think it's just trust and then just being particular about the right fit for my company.
Yeah. And do you have a system in place for identifying sooner than later if that fit isn't working or
I
if it's
do,
no
but
longer a fit?
honestly, I would say I do, but at the same time, I don't think there's been anyone that's because of the bit of a grueling process that they go through in order to even be offered the role. It helps me weed out anyone that wouldn't be a good fit. So I haven't had that happen yet.
Yeah, that's great. I have the my clients that have the most successful teams are the ones that set up those parameters in the hiring process and also in with the KPIs that are so consistent and watched so carefully that like you just always know. There's nothing worse than carrying a team member that isn't working for you anymore, but it's also amazing when you have both. those measurements and techniques and skills or tools in place to help lift them up into the position if for some reason that they're not meeting it, except especially if you've gone through an extensive fit process in the hiring, which is so good
Right.
that it seems like your hiring process is working really well.
It is, because most of the people that end up applying for the role don't even make it to the last stage because they don't wanna do the extra work, and so that helps me recognize, okay, then they probably wouldn't be the right fit because you're always gonna I want people that will go that extra mile.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about alignment over approval because you mentioned earlier in your business you took on clients that didn't always align with your values or vision. Tell us
Yep.
a little bit about that and what changed for you.
Yeah, similar to any business owner, you don't really turn away business in the beginning. You are still learning and establishing yourself too. It doesn't feel right to be picky if someone is open to going into this kind of a really, it's a very deep partnership between what we do and who we work with. We get to know them on a personal level, but then we also know things about like their finances. And so we're very ingrained in their business. And that's where it's becoming more and more important to me now to be a little bit more selective because I want to make sure that it's someone that would be comfortable as well sharing that kind of information with us. Not that they have to, but it does help, right? If the more aware we can be, it's almost like we treat it as if we're their internal marketing partner, even though we're technically external. That's how close we get with not only our clients, but like their entire team, and the company and the brand becomes almost like an extension of us. So it's really important now we have similar values. They don't have to be exactly the same, but there has to be enough alignment where we can have a successful partnership, or it's just not even going to be worth either of our times. Or investment, right? We want to make sure that it's worthwhile for both because I don't want my team to be stressed out because a client's unhappy. If they're not happy, then that's why we have a 30-day cancellation notice. Like we'd rather allow them to walk away than be causing any sort of stress. Like we really believe what we do should be fun and enjoyable. Like we're creating positive stories. Sharing the journey of how you got to where you are. And sometimes that means sharing vulnerable sides of it, but it still should be fun, right? Because you're showcasing how far you've come and setting that example for the next generation, or maybe even just making a positive impact in your community. It's all positive things.
Mm, yeah. So that alignment looks now like really vetting clients and giving them a way to know whether they're a good fit and knowing exactly what that fit looks like for your company.
Exactly.
You've also been speaking at conferences and even hosting your own show. What did it take to own your voice and claim your seat at those tables?
For me, I've just always been very just comfortable, I guess, with public speaking and just entering rooms and making connections immediately. Like even when I was in college, I worked on basically every single department on campus. So I had a role in admissions and in student advising and so even the fundraising department. So I was used to bouncing around and building connections with everyone in my little community of my college. I also was a public speaker in college where I gave the tours of hundreds of people that were visiting with their parents to determine, is this the school I want to attend? From a young age, I've just always been on stages in the front of the room teaching or talking or speaking. And so that's why I had a natural shift to being a university professor and then being a public speaker and a podcast host because it's just a natural thing for me. So I truly believe I end up in rooms for a reason. Obviously, I very curated of my calendar. I go to a lot of events and I get offered tickets or invites to events that I turn down sometimes. It really depends on, does this just go taking the time to go to this event actually, is that going to add value to my schedule and to my life right now? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but usually the ones I say yes to, I really believe I was just meant to be in that room, and it's like a gut reaction of these are people I do want to meet. And it's helpful to be selective, and you can't say yes to everything or I would be everywhere. When I first started in advertising, I was in a couple of groups where we were all in advertising. And I liked that in the beginning because we could bounce ideas off of each other, and we all had similar roles within an agency. But I would almost call that playing small because we're all very equal and we're able to build relationships and friendships, but no one was really pushing to the next level. So when I left those organizations, I decided I want to go to things like chambers or private entrepreneurship clubs where I can be in a room where there are people that are a little bit more leveled up than me, and I can surround myself with that and continue to build my brand. So I guess that's one way I shifted from just staying small or just comfortable to challenging myself to enter rooms where there were people that are more successful than I am.
So if you could go back and talk to the version of yourself who was in that slow season, maybe, those questions of doubt and second guessing, what would you tell her now?
I would say keep pushing, don't give up. The future is definitely bright and this won't be the only probably downtime, just part challenging time being an entrepreneur. Just using that experience to toughen my skin a little bit because if this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, like I need to build up a bit of a tougher skin for those kinds of challenging times. So, just continuing to tell myself to push through and try to stay positive is really the message I needed.
Yeah. So for listeners navigating a season of uncertainty or rebuilding their confidence, what's one action or mindset shift that you would recommend they take today?
Mindset is definitely everything. So it is being aware of any sort of like negative self-talk that you're just allowing to happen and trying to really switch those negative thoughts to something positive, right? There can be a positive side to anything, just like there could be a negative side. Really trying to just be more aware when you are in those places of negative self-talk and see if you can just one by one shift those to more positive thoughts because also think that's what's going to help you turn a slow period into something successful, right? Is having that kind of positive energy, positive mindset versus if you're consistently down on yourself and just carrying negative energy, it could, you might lose your next best opportunity because energy is everything. Right? If you want people to want to work with you, you should have as much positive energy as possible.
Yeah. And we talk about at the Self Trust Coach, you have to give yourself the full picture because, to Alexis's point, it's not all positive and it's not all negative. And so, as long as you're matching those comments, those thoughts about it being not great or negative thoughts, match it with what else is true because there's more than one side to the story. And that way, you are able to look again for more data than drama and move forward more informed because it's never all bad and it's never all perfect. And that's okay. It's part of life. And then also not making yourself the villain or the victim and take a moment just to see, okay, my agency here is to choose not only how I think about it, but what I can do about it. And with it, it's just such a more empowering place to be.
Yeah, that's so true.
Tell us more about what you do and how people can find you.
Sure. Yeah. So my specialty is personal branding, if you can't tell. And it's funny because it's something I've been working on for myself for so many years. And really, which really helped me curate a program we call the talent management program, where we see entrepreneurs as talent, just like a celebrity or a athlete has an agent, right? Who's scouting opportunities for them and negotiating rates for commercials and ads and new teams, contracts, things like that. But no one's really doing that for entrepreneurs who are also just as have established really visible personal brands where they could be monetizing a bit more through brand deals or consulting or paid speaking opportunities. That's really what we do is we've set up a program to help whether you're in early stages and you are looking to get to a place where you can monetize your personal brand. We can help from day one, or we have clients that are already very established and they just needed that level of representation and help with all the opportunities coming their way, deciding which ones are the right fit for them and to help get them to the next level. So, yeah, that's what we do. And you can learn more at rosarium.work, which is our website. And then obviously social media. We love to highlight some of our clients as they're on stages or hosting events. You can see a little bit about what we do. Well, also the team. We try to highlight the team as much as possible on our social so you can see who you're going to work with. Because, like I said, we get very close. So you want to make sure that it's people you want to be close to.
Yep. So we'll have all those links in the show notes, but you also have a brand score, something that our listeners can grab.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're kind of wondering, am I in the early stages? Am I actually ready to, as we call, harvest my platform and start to really monetize and even give back through my personal brand? We have a quiz or personal brand quiz where it'll ask you some questions about your following, how active you are on social media. We'll have you do a little activity of Googling yourself, which if you haven't done in a while is always interesting to see what comes up. And it'll come up with a score to let you know whether you're in the early stages called sprout, middle stages called bloom, and you're on your way there, or in your harvest stage. And that'll allow us to help understand too how we can help you.
Awesome. So check that out at rosarium.work/raise. And again, that link will be in the show notes. Alexis, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you have a self trust story you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. And if you want to create one, I'd love to help you claim it. You can check everything out at theselftrustcoach.com. And I'll also have the links in the show notes. Make sure that you're subscribed and following so that you don't miss out on the next awesome entrepreneur story of self trust. We'll see you next time.